Hello and welcome back to the WSS DL. I am Orucs-Oraihc from the Victoria Bells, and this is the Week 2 Teambuilder video. Now, you might be wondering, where's the Week 1 battle video? My opponent unfortunately did not have the time for the match and forfeited the match. So we win by rules 2-0, and the bracket stage goes on. We're in the top half of the bracket, as it were now, or it's round robin, but regardless, our opponent this week is Scraw of the Queen's Kinglers. I will have a link to their socials somewhere, probably, if I remember it, in the description. But let's take a look at their team. So, starting things off, we have in their S tier slot Tyranitar. Tyranitar is a really strong pseudo-legendary. Its Sandstream is just really good. It's a really powerful ability. It's nice to have that weather control in a Pokemon that's really good, like Tyranitar is. It's got massive HP and defenses. It's got base 134 attack. Its 61 base speed isn't bad in Trick Room, but it's also like middling speed tier that can also work in other situations. This is a pretty typical VGC set for it with the weakness policy. It can also hold an Assault Vest and drop Protect for more coverage moves, or even just another Dark type move like Crunch isn't too uncommon. But yeah, typically you're going to be running Rock Slide, some kind of Dark Stab, be that Lash Out or Crunch, usually Lash Out. You'll have Superpower as your kind of fighting type move, and then you'll have Protect as well. It's pretty common to run max HP on a Tyranitar and max attack with 4 either defense or special defense. But you can also run some speed on a Tyranitar to just be faster, if you want to be faster. In any case, it's a really strong Pokemon that you've got to be very careful about, because if it Dynamaxes and it gets its weakness policy off, it's going to be dishing out massive damage. That base 134 attack stat is nothing to sneeze at. Next up, we have Excadrill. Excadrill is another really strong physical attacker. So it's pretty often going to be holding the Life Orb. It also runs the Focus Sash sometimes, but more often than not, it's going to be Life Orb, just because it's a Dynamax candidate that wants to dish out the most damage possible. And especially in a draft like this, there are other Pokemon on the team that might want to be holding the Focus Sash. Sand Rush and Sand Force are both good, but Sand Rush is probably the better ability for my opponent this week, considering their team overall isn't actually all that fast, even compared to mine. Like Excadrill is still outspeeding a lot of things, but it's slower than my Liepard, my Excadrill, and my Emolga. And if I put a Scarf on anything, it's outspeeding the Excadrill. So Sand Rush is probably going to be what my opponent chooses to go with this week. Earthquake, Iron Head, Rock Slide, Protect is a pretty common moveset, especially next to Tyranitar. Earthquake can be used to proc the weakness policy while also dealing big damage to the opponent, and because of Tyranitar's huge HP and defense stats, it's not doing all that much damage to the T-Tar. Double Rock Slide from these two is a scary proposition, and overall, Excadrill is just dishing out massive damage constantly. The good news is that it's a lot more frail than Tyranitar, with only base 60 and 65 in its defenses, so it's a lot more susceptible to go down in those cases. And I've got this speed. The reason I've got Excadrill running almost no speed here is because this is all it needs to outspeed my Excelgor in the sand, and that allows it to run a lot more HP, be a lot bulkier in this draft league setting. So it could very well be running more speed, but I think this is the most likely kind of speed range for it to fall into. So that's why I've got it there. Moving up next, one of my least favorite Pokemon of all time, Sableye. It's not like I hate the Pokemon for itself. It's just that I hate playing against it, and I never play with it. So, Sableye has weather control with Prankster. It also has a couple of really annoying moves like Quash. It gets Will-O-Wisp. Fake Out and Foul Play are kind of a given on Sableye. It needs to be able to do some damage, but Will-O-Wisp, Quash, it also gets, again, weather with Sunny Day, I think Rain Dance, but maybe not. Yeah, it gets Rain Dance and Sunny Day. Might get the Sandstorm as well, but I don't think so. Yeah, no, I don't see it. But this thing can just be really annoying, especially when Ally Switch gets involved. If you lead Sableye T-Tar and your opponent tries to close combat the T-Tar and it goes for an Ally Switch, then that's just sadness abound. This thing wants to run as much defense as possible, or as much defensively as possible. It's got high H. It's not got the best stats, but its ability and move pool make up for that, and Quash especially. What else is there to say? It really wants to just run as much defense as possible and just be as much of an annoyance as it can. It also gets Recover, I think, which is super annoying, super difficult. Okay, now we go on to Crocodile. Crocodile is an interesting Pokemon, to say the least. It's an Intimidator, but it's not actually the greatest Intimidator, just because its speed tier is kind of middling. It's in the high end for Draft League, but that's kind of awkward otherwise. It's going to probably be running offensively, to be completely honest. With like a good bit of speed, enough to outspeed most of my Mons I think I've put on it here. It should outspeed Chandelure, I think, with this spread. And everything slower, of course. High horsepower, Lash Out, Close Combat, Rock Slide. Again, it's just a strong physical attacker that can also be very supportive with its Intimidate, and it can have a good bit of bulk with its Assault Vest if it's holding that item. I think that's probably the best set for my opponent this week, is the Assault Vest, just because of my Togekiss being super threatening if I run offensive. Moving on from there, my opponent has Ditto. There's not much to say about Ditto. It's going to be a Choice Scarf user. It's got Imposter ability. You run max HP, max speed, and 4 in something else, just on the off chance that you can't transform when you go out, but you will always be transformed when you're out and you're Imposter. So, yeah, it's really all that matters on a Ditto, especially in draft, is max HP. And it'll just copy the rest of the stats. So, Ditto is a little bit frightening because I could get reverse swept by one of my own Mons, which is never a fun thing. Next we have Shuckle. It's most likely going to be Sturdy Custap. That's the most common set for it. Sturdy Custap, because my opponent has Chansey as well. I've got Guard Split, Power Split, Knockoff, Infestation. This is a kind of standard annoying Shuckle set. It can also run Toxic over Knockoff, which I think is probably actually just even better. If I can find Toxic here, there it is. Yeah, this kind of a set is really annoying to deal with. It's going to be max HP, max defense, of course, because that's what Shuckle does. It just really annoys the heck out of you. And Sturdy is just so bad. It's so difficult to work around. And the other option is it could be running Mental Herb, because I do have Liepard, which gets Taunt access, so that's another thing to think about. And when if and when it comes out, is that it could be Mental Herb or Custap, which are two things that I need to play very differently around. Generally, faking it out is probably the easiest way to get around both of those, but then it could be Leftovers as well as a third option. So Sturdy would get back active again because Fake Out does 3 damage to this thing, 4 if it high rolls. So yeah, Shuckle being annoying is a possibility. Next up we have Larvesta. I've made this set specifically because my opponent was like, hey, I drafted Larvesta because it's super bad. I thought it got a move that it didn't get. My opponent thought it got Rage Powder, so they drafted Larvesta. Larvesta does not get Rage Powder, but it does have a decent physical attack stat. And it could, in Trick Room, in theory, run something like this with a Choice Band, because it does actually have strong moves like Flare Blitz, Wild Charge, then Headbutt, U-Turn. It has Double Edge. It has Facade if it gets statused. It has Leech Life for Bug Stab if you don't want to be running U-Turn on a choice set. It has moves. It's not the worst Pokemon in existence. It's not great, though. It's not a good Pokemon. So moving on next, we have Comfey. Comfey does kind of standard stuff with the Triage ability, Draining Kiss, Giga Drain. It could run Trick Room either to set or to reverse Trick Room. And Helping Hand, this is kind of standard Comfey stuff. Something to note here is I've made this set min special attack just because it is quite possible that the Comfey is a Draining Kiss weakness policy activator for my opponent's Tyranitar. If my opponent wants to activate their own weakness policy with Tyranitar, they can do it with +3 priority with Draining Kiss. And that is very hard to stop because it's faster than Redirection. So... And I have 2 Redirectors, so that's an option if they want to get a weakness policy off on a Tyranitar. Either get Draining Kiss or Giga Drain. And here, as you see, I've got no speed investment on this thing because with these 2 moves, it doesn't need speed investment because it's +3 priority thanks to Triage. It could also go Floral Healing. I think that's its move. Yes? Am I making that up? Yeah, Floral Healing is the other thing it does. Let me just put that on the set. Where basically it's just going to be healing it's going to be healing the partner with +3 priority, which goes faster than Redirection, so it can't heal my Redirectors. Overall, just an annoying support mon to deal with, but if I have the right tools, which I think I do, it shouldn't be too crazy to worry about. Next up we have Chansey. Chansey is the bane of my existence. I hate this Pokemon with every fiber of my being. I don't like Chansey. I'm a Chansey hater. I'm gonna say it like it is. Minimize, Soft Boiled, Seismic Toss, +1. It can be Protect. It can be Ally Switch. It can be like Shadow Ball to hit ghost types. It can be something else really annoying if you want it to be. I don't think Chansey gets Toxic in VGC, but it's an annoying Pokemon, and it's just you run max HP, max defense, and you actually have enough bulk to live physical hits, like 1 or 2, if they're not super effective. And after a guard split, you're just never dying, pretty much, which is annoying. Next up, we have another annoying Stalmon Quagsire. With Unaware, it avoids all setup moves and setup mons. It could also be Water Absorb if my opponent is worried about my singular water type. Which maybe they should be, but I mean, I wouldn't personally be worried about my D tier pick if I were my opponent. That said, again, maybe should be, which we'll get to in a moment. Yawn, Recover, Protect, and Scald to get burns. This thing just wants to be specially defensive and living hits and staying on the field forever. it's annoying. It's something that I have the tools to take care of, but it's annoying nonetheless because it's very bulky and its typing makes it more bulky, even though it has a 4x weakness. Last but not least, we have Jellicent. Jellicent has Water Absorb. It could also run Cursed Body. In any case, it's a Trick Room setter, basically, and it can also be offensive in Trick Room with Recover Water Spout. Recover Water Spout is a horrifying combination. If you've never seen it, you just get back to full HP and then get off a full power Water Spout. Shadow Ball for second stab, Trick Room setter on its own, and it's fairly bulky, 100 HP, 70, 105 in defenses, and a decent special attack to fire off those Water Spouts with. So it's nothing to sneeze at, Jellicent. Very terrifying mon in certain contexts. So with that said, what am I going to bring to try to get through this team, as it were? Because these last 6 Pokemon that I talked about, or really excluding Larvesta, are things to get through rather than to get past, you know? Like, rather than mitigating the damage, you need to be dealing it. And I think I've found a way. So, to beat the kind of standard mode of this team, I think the best way to go about that is with Seeking in the rain. So Seeking gets Swift Swim, which means that it's more known in VGC for being a Lightning Rod Pokemon because a single mono water type team, or almost mono water type team, did well, and that had a Seeking on it that was Lightning Rod. But Swift Swim is the kind of strategy that I will probably be using more often, especially when I'm going up against weather, because Swift Swim is just a good ability. It gives me speed, and the rain also powers up my water type moves, my waterfalls. As you can see, I'm running a bit of an unconventional set. I'm running Swords Dance, which I think is going to be very useful. I can lead this with Redirection, and then just get a Swords Dance or 2 off, power myself up, and then get Rain Up and, like, Dynamax, get Rain Up, get really fast. Yeah. This thing has enough speed to outspeed things that are outspeeding things. Don't worry about it. It's 3 points faster than 4 speed investment Excadrill. And that is just what I was aiming for. I was aiming to be a point faster than 20 speed investment Excadrill, as it were. It's got max attack otherwise. Good HP number for Sandstorm because my opponent has Sandstorm. That's what most of these HP numbers are based around that you'll see on the team today. I've put the rest in more defense than special defense just because my opponent's mons are more physical than special. Now you might be wondering, why are you leaving Hitmontop on the bench when your opponent's entire offensive core is physical and they have a Tyranitar? And that's because my opponent is probably going to be prepared and have ways to deal with that. Again, Lash Out is a pretty easy way to deal with Intimidates, at least for 1 turn. So, yeah. Next up, well, the moves, other moves, I suppose, and the item. Lumberry is for the Sableye, because Sableye is bad and stupid, and I hate it. Waterfall is my strong water stab. Mega Horn is my second strong physical move. And then Horn Drill is my strategy to get rid of every Pokemon that I don't like at the end of the game. If only Shuckle is left, I can shrug off one of its Toxics. I can Swords Dance up and I can just Waterfall it to death. And that shouldn't take more than maybe 2. Which should give me plenty of time to do it. anything else that I don't like, I can just horn drill until I hit. And they can't take me out quite as quickly. So that's my kind of way that I'm banking on dealing with these things. The only thing on my opponent's team that horn drill doesn't hit, of course, is Jellicent. And Jellicent, I should really have a move other than this. I should switch to Throat Chop. I'm going to switch to Throat Chop. This is kind of last minute, but yeah. I'm going to do that. Next up we have Liepard. Liepard is running my Rain Dance set. It's also got Screech on it this week. Prankster Rain Dance is going to just change the weather before my opponent's Excadrill is outspeeding me. So then I outspeed it, as it were. And I can one-hit KO it with a Waterfall in the Rain, Max Geyser. Yeah. Fake Out deals with a lot of things on the first turn. Foul Play can deal with an Excadrill almost on its own, especially if it Swords Dances. The Excadrill just dies to a Foul Play, which is really nice. And Screech is just to support the Sea King and the Caparaja. So that's why that is there. Next up we have Indeedee. This is my standard, or Indeedee F. This is my standard kind of support Indeedee. It's got Follow Me, Helping Hand. It's got Dazzling Gleam and Expanding Force this week. I could be running Heal Pulse, but I don't think that's going to be quite as useful. In any case, Dazzling Gleam hits Tyranitar for super effective. It hits Crocodile for super effective. Expanding Force hits everything else on the team for at least some damage. But really the point of this thing is to be as physically bulky as possible, and also to have a good HP number for Sandstorm. And just to shrug off a Crunch or a Lash Out, and maybe to survive a max move from the Excadrill, and to just hopefully get on with it after that, and just give my Sea King a turn to set up, give my Caparaja a turn to be on the field, that kind of a thing. Speaking of the Caparaja, we're running Sheer Force Life Orb this week, but again, the set is a little bit different from my usual. We've got my standard Iron Head, Play Rough, Rock Slide. That's the three E-moves that I most commonly put on my Caparaja, but instead of High Horsepower for a ground type move, this week I've got Fissure. And it's the same reason I've got Horn Drill on my Fish. Fissure just hits everything on that team. There's no flying type, there's no Levitate Mons. This thing can get rid of an air balloon if there is one. So that's kind of the idea of Fissure. If I get into a 1v1 versus a stall Pokemon, I am more likely to survive long enough and just get off the move. It's got HP for days. This thing will live for... It's 5-hit KO'd by Seismic Toss is the main thing, really. It's a bit more physically bulky than specially bulky because Tyranitar, Excadrill, Crocodile, etc. You get it. Next up we have Togekiss. Togekiss is also Follow Me support on this team, although I'm hoping that I'll be able to bluff that it is an offensive Togekiss. It does have 4 special attack investment, which is not no special attack investment, but what really it has is enough speed to outspeed this by 1 point, assuming it outspeeds Sea King by 1 point, I should be specific, outside of rain. And that is enough to outspeed Excadrill with 20 investment as well, outside of the sand. Babbery Berry because of Excadrill's max Steel Spikes that it wants to fire off into this. This thing is running a more defensive spread, but actually kind of mixed. Its HP is 1 less than max because of Sandstorm number, and yeah, it's kind of mostly mixed defenses, but like if I bring that down, if I bring the special defense up by a point, as you see, then that goes to 142, but because of the boosting nature, defense goes up to 143. So that's what I'm going with instead. Yeah. Follow me, Air Slash Dazzling Gleam, Helping Hand with the Serene Grace ability. Air Slash is flinching 60% of the time. Times 0.95, of course, so like 57% of the time my opponent doesn't get to move when my Togekiss is in front of them, and that's not odds that you want against any Pokemon in a 1v1 situation, to just not be able to get a move off. Yeah. Another consideration I had for this week was, instead of Dazzling Gleam Air Slash, to just run Rest Snore, because that is a set, and Serene Grace Snore is kind of broken. But yeah. And just being able to shrug off damage like that is pretty good. But instead I'm going with this just because it lets me more easily Dynamax the Togekiss in a pinch. It also lets me more easily bluff that I'm offensive Togekiss if I were to do something else. And then finally we have my Excalgor. This is the strangest Excalgor set that you've ever seen. I guarantee it. There's just no other way around it. We've got Substitute, Double Team, Recover, and Toxic. We've got Leftovers Excalgor with Hydration. When I'm bringing a rain team, I may as well bring Hydration Excalgor. This thing can 1v1 Shuckle with its own Toxic, because it doesn't get toxic itself in the rain, thanks to Hydration ability. And Double Team will make it harder to hit, and Recover will be able to shrug off the damage from some stuff. I'm running very defensive, but I have enough speed to outspeed whatever this is outspeeding. Liepard is outspeeding, I think, a base 100, so I think that I wanted my Excalgor to do the same, just outspeed, in a worst case scenario, the Comfey on the opposing team. If for whatever reason it's not using its +3 priority moves into me, then I don't know. I don't know why it wouldn't do that, but it's outspeeding that regardless. So this Excalgor is somehow neither support nor offense. It is stall. And stall Excalgor is something that I have considered very briefly, and like I've considered very briefly in the past, and I thought about it this week, and I was like, you know what, if my opponent brings Chansey Shuckle, then I can bring this. If my opponent doesn't bring Chansey Shuckle, then I shouldn't need to bring Excalgor, because I think I should be able to just sweep with Seeking. And that's kind of the plan, just in general for this week. If my opponent has Chansey Shuckle on the team, then I'll try with Seeking, but my kind of endgame strategy is Excalgor with Caparajah, just doing some damage and stalling out. Maybe getting DD in there, but really, the goal for this week is that if I don't see stall on the opposing side of the field, then Seeking can just get through everything very easily. So, yeah, why do I have Rock Slide, by the way? I have Rock Slide for something, right? Only Larvesta. Okay, we're immediately swapping that out for Protect. Okay. Yeah. 2 live changes to the team. Hope you enjoyed seeing that. Hopefully I'll do well this week. I am definitely going to have the match. That is kind of the idea. I'm recording this like 45 minutes before we're scheduled to have the match, and I am currently deafened on a voice call with my opponent, so yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you very soon for the battle. Until then, bye!